There are not many paintings that capture an artist's friends gathered together simply for the purpose of having a good time. Renoir's Luncheon of the Boating Party, painted in 1880 to 1881, is certainly the most famous. But Cape Ann has its own spirited snapshot of an age. It's called New England Ladies, painted in 1925 by Theresa Bernstein. All friends of Bernstein's, the people in this work together represent an important community of women in the Folly Cove neighborhood of Gloucester in the early 20th century. Theresa Bernstein came to Folly Cove at the invitation of artists Ellen Day Hale and Gabrielle Devoe Clemens, who were considered life partners. Cape Ann historian Barbara Ercola described Miss Hale as a leader in Folly Cove's art colony, which was composed mostly of women like herself who had stuck to their own guns and studied art, despite family traditions of becoming decorative hostesses while men achieved their own goals. Ellen Day Hale's self-portrait hangs in the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. Gabrielle Devoe Clemens studied painting under Thomas Eakins and etching under Stephen Parrish. She was known in art circles throughout the country as a printmaker and muralist. Clemens is credited with being the first artist to find beauty in a granite quarry. Lillian Westcott Hale was considered one of the most successful Impressionist artists from the Boston School. She was known for portraying idealized, thoughtful women, but also sensitive impressions of the women in her own family, like this portrait of the artist's mother. Lillian was married to Ellen Day Hale's brother. Lillian's daughter, Nancy Hale, would become the most prolific fiction writer in the New Yorker magazine's history. She would receive the O. Henry Prize for short fiction 10 times. She was known for her portrayals of complicated women. Here is Nancy Hale, featured in a 1936 issue of Harper's Bazaar. Dorothy Grafley would become a prominent Philadelphia art critic and correspondent for the Christian Science Monitor and American Art magazine. She grew up in Paris. Her first playmate was Alexander Calder. Gertrude Stanwood studied painting with Miss Hale and Miss Clemens. The party is in her house. Mrs. Frisbee served meals in her own home across the street to Folly Cove visitors. There were sometimes 10 artists, including 2 future Prix de Rome recipients at her table. Mr. Burnham provided everyone with lobsters. Theresa Bernstein and her husband, artist William Meyerowitz, would for the rest of their lives divide their time between New York City and Cape Ann, capturing the social realities of urban America and Cape Ann in a changing century. Bernstein died in 2002 at what is thought to be 111 years. Nancy Hale would inherit her Aunt Nellie's, Ellen Day Hale's, Folly Cove Stone Studio, which so many of these friends, including Bernstein, had shared as creative space. Years later, Nancy reflected in a New Yorker piece on this group of artists, saying, "Once or twice, to my astonishment, I burst into tears. What astonished me was not so much that I should be crying, as what I realized I was crying about. It was not because my mother or Aunt Nellie was dead, or out of sadness for all those other artists, Aunt Nellie's friends, who also used this place long ago, but because in the silence of the studio, I remembered what a wonderful time they all had." Bernstein's painting testifies to that joy. And here's a last thought about this work by Theresa Bernstein. Duncan Phillips, founder of the Phillips Collection in Washington, D.C., purchased Renoir's Luncheon of the Boating Party in 1923. In December of that year, Bernstein attended an opening in Washington, D.C. at the Corcoran Gallery, where her painting, Girlhood, painted, by the way, in Ellen Day Hale's Stone Studio, was being exhibited. During that visit, Duncan Phillips purchased Bernstein's Girlhood for the Phillips collection. No one can know for certain, but it seems likely that Bernstein saw the new Renoir at the Phillips on that visit. The very next year, 1925, Bernstein painted New England Ladies, this joyous assembly of her own Folly Cove friends, older and younger guests bridging the past and future. Could she have been thinking about the vivacity in the Renoir when she composed this gathering of her own special friends?